Welcome. Today we're going to learn how to design a desktop fan using Tinkercad and a simple circuit. So we'll start by designing this base here in Tinkercad, complete with a battery compartment, as well as a switch, as well as a tower that will hold the DC motor. Then at the end we'll learn how to wire this together so that it actually spins and can actually keep you cool. So let's get started. The first thing you want to do is open up a web browser and go to tinkercad.com. From there, you'll see the home page. Here you can log in if you already have an account or sign up if you need to create one. I'm going to go ahead and get logged in. Now I'll see my home page here, and I'm going to click here on Create and 3D Design. That'll open up a new work plane for me. The first thing I want to do is rename it. So up here for the title, I'll click. And I'm going to change this to desktop fan. Now I'm going to start by designing the base plate. So I'm going to click on the red cube here and add that to the work plane. Now I'll click on one of the white squares, see the dimensions, and I'll change this dimension to 140. And then I'll drag it back on the work plane. Now I'll click on the dimension again and I'll change the other dimension to 42. So I should have 140 by 42. Now I'm going to change the height and make it 2 millimeters tall. So I'll click on the center square and change that to 2. Now I want to round my edges here on the end so that it looks better. So I'm going to rotate around, view it from the right side here. Scroll in so I can see that edge really well. And now I'm going to choose this turquoise colored round roof and add that to the side here. So if I hover over the side, I'll see that circle, which lets me know I'm on the side. I'll click to place it. Now I want to adjust the size here. So I'm going to click on one of the white squares, and then I want to change the width here to 42, the same as my base plate here. And then I want to change the height here, so the other 20, I'm going to change that to 2. Now I'm going to click anywhere to get this green square to go away. Now I'm going to select both of my pieces here. I can rotate back around to the front so I can see what's going on. Now I'll click the Align tool, and I'm going to click the center circle here to align them that direction. And then I'll click the bottom circle here. I can actually click any of those because they are the same height. So I'll click the bottom circle here, and now they are attached. Or not quite attached yet, but at least together. Okay, now I need to do the other side. I could do it the exact same way, or I'll use some of the other tools that I have in Tinkercad. So I'm going to choose this shape that I just created, the turquoise end piece there. Then I'll click on the duplicate tool. Now I'm going to rotate around to the side, and I'm going to click on the work plane tool, the grid here. And I'm going to place it on this side here. So make sure you're hovering over that side and then click to place that. Now I'll click D on the keyboard to drop that duplicated piece onto that work plane. Now obviously it's the wrong way around. So I'm going to use the mirror tool. So make sure I select that, and then I'll use the mirror tool here, and it looks like two triangles looking in a mirror. And then I'll click on the horizontal arrow here at the bottom so that it flips it around. Now I can change my work plane back to normal by clicking on the work plane tool again, and then clicking anywhere on the background. So I have my base plate complete. I'm not going to group it together yet because I'm going to use this red part in order to align some of my other pieces. So I'm going to select everything and move it to the back of the work plane so it won't be in my way. Now the next piece I'm going to design is the battery holder compartment. Now I'm going to add another red box to the work plane. And now I'm going to change the dimensions to 64 by 38. Okay, 64 by 38. And I'll change the height, clicking on the center square, and change that to 18. Now I want to make this hollow, so I'm going to click on the box square with stripes on it, the hole, and I want to make it 60 by 34. Okay, so 60 by 34. Now I'm going to center them, so I'll select both pieces, click on the Align tool, and then I'll click Center and Center to center them with each other. Now I'll click on the Group tool and have that hole now cut out. Now I want to cut a slit where the wires can go through, so I'm going to use the box hole here, and I'm going to change the dimensions. Where the 20 is this direction, I'm going to change that to a 3. Now I want to center these, so I'll select both of them and then use my Align tool, and then I'll use this center here, and then I'll use the right align here. And now I can group that together, and I'll have a slit cut on the side where I'll be able to insert the wires. Now I want to raise this up 2 millimeters, so I'm going to use this triangle, or sometimes it looks like a teardrop tool, and I'm going to raise it up 2 millimeters. Now I'm going to leave this selected, hold down the Shift key and select the red part of my base plate. So I'll see I have 2 shapes selected. Then I'm going to use the Align tool. I'm going to click on that red part of the base plate to show I want everything aligned according to that. And then I'm going to use the left Align tool, so this left circle over here, and this center circle over here. So now I have my battery pack installed onto my base plate. Now I'm ready to create the switch box. So I'm going to add a red cube onto the work plane. And this time I will make the dimensions 22 by 18. Now I'll change the height and make that 11 high. Now I want to cut the hole out. So I'm going to add a box hole, and I want to make this one 18 by 14. So I'll change the 20 here to 18 and the 20 over here to 14. Now I'm going to align these two up, centered, and group them together so that I have the hole cut out. Now I want to design a lid to go on the switch box so that the switch will snap down and be very tight. So I'm going to add a box to the work plane. And I'm going to make it the same dimensions as the switch box here. So I'll make it 22 by 18. Then I'm going to make it 2 millimeters tall. And now I want to raise it up so it's going to be level with this switch box. So I'm going to click on the work plane, click on the edge of the switch box, and then I'll click D to drop that on top of that work plane. Now I'm going to add a box hole to the work plane. And I'm going to make that 12 this direction and 18.5 this direction. And then I want to make it 1 millimeter high. Now I'll add another box hole to the work plane, and I'm going to make it 9 this direction and 14.3 this direction. Now I'll take those 3 shapes that I have created, click on one, hold down the Shift key, click on the other, and then click on the third one. And now I'm going to use my Align tool to center them this direction as well as this direction. Okay, so you can see how this lid is going to have a little extra space here, okay, to allow that switch to snap in. Now I'll group that together. And now I have the lid. I'm going to have the lid, hold down the Shift key and select the switch box. Going to use the Align tool, and I want to center align and center align. And then I can group them together, and I have the completed switch box. I can change the work plane back to normal by clicking on the work plane tool and then the background. Now I'm ready to make a slit for those wires to pass through. So I'm going to add a box hole to the work plane. I'm going to change the width and make that 2 millimeters. And I'll change the length and I'll make that 25 millimeters. Now I'm going to align these two shapes. So with that one selected, I'll hold down the Shift key, select the other one, use the Align tool to center align and bottom align. Click anywhere to exit the Align tool, select my hole shape, and then I'll click the up arrow key to move the hole shape 5 millimeters up. So I'm going to click it 5 times. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now I can group those together. And now I have a complete switch box. So I'm going to raise it up 2 millimeters. So I'll use that arrow or triangle shape to move it up 2 millimeters. And now I can center it with my rectangle here. So I'll hold down the Shift key, select that red rectangle, the Align tool, center it with that rectangle, and then I'll use that center align that way. Center align really doesn't work here, so I can try that, but then I'll need to click it and then move it a little bit over that direction. Placement's not super important, but I want to make sure that I have enough space between my battery compartment and my switch. And now finally, I'm going to create the tower for my motor and fan. So this time I'll start with the orange cylinder, add it to the work plane, increase the number of sides as far as it'll go. And now I will change the dimensions here to 34 by 34. So it has a diameter of 34 millimeters. Then I'm going to increase the height to 85 millimeters. Now I'm going to add this pink half sphere and I'm going to place it on top of the cylinder. I'll change the dimensions so it is the same as the cylinder, so it'll be 34 millimeters on both sides. And then I'm going to change the height to 15 millimeters. Now I want to center align these two pieces, so make sure you select both pieces and nothing in the background, and then use the Align tool to center and center. Now I can go ahead and group those together. Now I'm going to create a hole to go up this tower where I'll be able to get my wires in. So I'm going to use the hole cylinder here, add that to the work plane. I'm going to leave the dimensions here at 20. And I'm going to increase the height to 69. Then I'm going to use this triangle or ice cream cone shape, and I'm going to move it down 2 millimeters. The reason for that is I actually want the hole to go through the base. Now I'm going to center align these two, so I'll select my tower here as well as the hole and use the Align tool to center and center. So you should see the hole sticking out of the bottom. Now I'll click anywhere to exit the Align tool. The next thing I'm going to do is create the cutout for the motor. It's going to take several shapes to make that shape of the motor. So I'm going to start with the orange cylinder and add that to the work plane. Now I'm going to increase the number of sides all the way up. And then I'm going to use this rotational arrow. So I'm turning it so I view it from the right side. And then I'm going to find this rotational arrow. And I'm going to rotate it so that the circular face faces the front of the work plane. So I'm rotating exactly 90 degrees. Okay, if you mess up and don't get exactly 90 degrees, use that undo arrow and try again. Now I'm going to change the dimensions here. So I'll click on the white square. I want to change the depth, so how far in it goes, to 29. And then I want to change the width across here to 24.35. So 29 by 24.35. And then I'll change the height of the cylinder to 23.5. Now I need to cut off the sides of this cylinder, so I'm going to use the box hole. And then I want to drag it so that it is longer than my cylinder. The exact dimensions aren't important, just make sure it is longer than that cylinder. Now I want to change the work plane to be the side face of that rectangle or that box shape that I just created. So I'll click on the work plane tool, and then I'm going to click on the side of that rectangular prism that I just created. Now I'm going to make sure I have that box hole selected. Then I'm going to click on the duplicate button. I'm going to hit D on the keyboard to drop it on top of that work plane. And then I'm going to use this triangle tool to drag it out 19 millimeters. So you can see as I start dragging, I can see those numbers. I can try to get to exactly 19, or I can always stop and just click and type 19 in. Okay, now I'm going to change my work plane back to normal. So I'll click on work plane and then just click anywhere here on the background. Now I want to group the two box holes together. So I have one selected. I'll hold down the Shift key and select the other one. And then I'll click on the group tool. It'll look like nothing happens, but now these two pieces are going to work together as a group. So now with my grouped box holes, I'm going to hold down the Shift key and select the cylinder. So to make sure I have the grouped box holes and the cylinder selected. And I'm going to use the Align tool. And I want to align in all three directions. So I'm going to click on the center, and the center. And now I can click Group to group those together, and you'll see now I have the shape of a DC motor with those squared off edges. Now I'm going to turn it into a hole by clicking on the hole button, and then I'm going to use the triangle tool and move it up 59 millimeters, or just stop and type in 59 millimeters. Now with that hole still selected, I'm going to hold down the Shift key and click on my tower to select that as well. Then I will use the Align tool. I want to align according to the tower, so I'm going to click on the tower first. Then I'm going to click on my front Align tool, so right here on that front circle. And then I'm going to click on the center circle to center align, so front and center. Now I'm going to add a small hole to the back side. On the work plane is the back side. On my finished fan, it'll actually be the front side, where the motor piece will stick out and the fan will be able to connect. So I'm going to add a cylinder hole to the work plane. And I want to change the dimensions there to make it 2.5 millimeters. Both directions, so that will be my diameter. I also want to increase the sides as far as they will go. And now I'm going to rotate 90 degrees. So I'll use the rotational arrow here and rotate 90 degrees. Okay, now I'm going to make sure I have this selected, then I'll select the tower here. So I'll hold down the Shift key, select the tower. Then I'll use the Align tool. I want to align according to the tower, so I'll click on the tower first. And I just simply want to back align it. So I'm going to click on this back circle here to make sure it's even with the back of that tower. Now I'll click anywhere to get out of the Align tool. Now I'm going to center align with the motor itself, the motor cutout. So I'm going to select the cylinder that I just created, that hole. I'm going to hold down the Shift key and select the motor cutout. Now I'm going to click on the Align tool, and now click on the motor cutout to show that I want to align according to that motor cutout. And now I'm going to click on Centered this direction so that they're centered this way. And then I want to center this direction, so I'll click on Center this way. Okay, and now you should see a little hole sticking out of the back of that tower. Now I can click anywhere to exit that Align tool. Now before I group all of this together, I'm going to go ahead and save this shapes into my favorite shape in case I ever create anything else with a DC motor like this. I won't have to recreate that shape every time. So I'm going to select the DC motor cutout I made, hold down the Shift key, and also select that little cutout there. I'm going to group those together. And now I'm going to come over here where I see basic shapes. I'm going to click and change that to Your Creations. And then I'm going to say Create Shape. Okay, and so you can see my shape here that has been created. And I can name it. I'll call it DC Motor Cutout. And I'm also going to choose the option here to lock the part size. That'll keep me from ever accidentally changing the size because the DC motor is going to have to fit into this hole. And then I can click on Save Shape. Now I'll have these special creations over here. I'll see that DC motor cutout, and I'll be able to use that again in a future project if I need to. Now we do want to check if in all of that moving we did what I have here and accidentally moved this off center. So I'm going to select that hole, select my cylinder here, my tower, the pink part, and I'm going to use the Align tool. I want to align according to that tower, and I want to make sure it's centered and centered. Now, if you were really careful, yours may still be centered, but I noticed that mine was not, so I want to make sure that is centered back up. Now I can click anywhere to exit that Align tool, and now I do want to bundle all of these pieces together. So I'm going to click over here and select everything that makes up the tower, and I'm going to click here the option to bundle group. Okay, so I'm not grouping it solid, I'm just putting it in a bundle so that I can use it together and align everything together, but I'm not actually cutting the holes yet. Now with that selected, I'll hold down the Shift key and select the red base plate. And now I'm going to use the Align tool, click on that red base plate, and I'm going to center and right align. Okay, I should see the hole sticking through the bottom there. And now I can click anywhere to exit the Align tool, choose that bundled tower, and then choose here to ungroup it. Now I'll see those holes once more. I'm also going to need a little hole here on the side of the tower in order to allow the wires to go through. So I'm going to go back here to my basic shapes, and I'm going to choose this round roof tool, and I'll add that to my work plane. I'm going to rotate it 90 degrees, and I'm going to change that to a hole. I'll change the dimension here to make it 10 millimeters. I'm going to make sure I have that selected. I'll select the tower. Then I'll use the Align tool. Click on the tower to keep it still, and then I want to center align and then front align here so that I can see it peeking out of my tower. Now I can click anywhere to exit the Align tool. Now I'm just about ready to group everything together. Before I do, I want to select my objects in case I ever want to use this switch box or this battery pack for something else. So I'll select the switch box. I'm going to go back over here and choose Your Creations, and then I'm going to say Create Shape, and I will say Switch Box. Give it a name. Okay, make sure to lock the part size, and then save the shape. And I can do the same thing here with my battery box. Can go to Your Creations, and go to Create Shapes, and call this the AA battery box. And save the shape. Lock the part size and then save the shape. Okay, so now I have those pieces in case I ever need to use them for another project. Okay, so with all of that selected, I can now, or with all of that finished, I can select everything and then click on the group button to cut all of my holes. Okay, and to make all of my pieces one part. If you want to, you can change the color. Now, one other option that you do have is if you like to write something on the battery box, you can do that. So from my basic shapes, I can choose text, can add that to the battery box, and give it something I want to say on there. I'll say, keep it cool. Okay, and now I do want to resize this. So make sure that my work plane is the battery box. So I'll click work plane and then click on the battery box. And then I can resize it so that it'll fit on there. Can be helpful to view straight on from the front, so make sure everything is looking like I think it is. Okay, and now I want to change the width, so how far it sticks out. I want to change and make that 0.5 millimeters, so 0.5. I'm going to change it to a hole. Okay, and then I need to push it into the battery box 0.5 millimeters. So I'm going to use the little triangle tool, push it in, it'll go in 1, and I'm going to change that to negative, so a minus 0.5. Okay, and then it'll be sticking out just a little bit. Okay, or it'll be flush with that battery box. And then I can group everything together and it'll have like an embossed look there for my text. Now I can change my work plane back to normal and my desktop fan tower is complete and ready to print. So I can click now on export, save it as an STL file. Now I've opened up Bamboo Studio, the slicing program that I'm going to be using. You may use a different slicing program depending on your printer. The process will be similar even if the buttons are in slightly different places. Okay, so the first thing I want to do is add the desktop fan to the work plane, or to the printer plate here. And now I'm going to use 0.4 diameter. I've got a 0.2 millimeter layer height. Don't need any special supports or infills or anything, so I can leave it as is. I can click on Slice Plate. And now I can choose to print plate and send that to my printer, and then click on Send. And once you have your tower printed, you are ready to begin assembly. Before you begin assembly, you want to gather all your supplies. Make sure you have your 3D printed tower. You'll also need a battery pack for 2 AA batteries. You'll need a small rocker switch, an extra piece of wire, a DC motor, 2 AA batteries, a small plastic fan, and some wire strippers. Start with your tower and a AA battery pack. Place it gently in its location, and then using your switch, see about how much red wire you need to reach from the battery pack to the switch, allowing enough that you'll be able to twist around the lead on the switch. Then use your wire strippers to cut off the red wire that you don't need, and then use the wire strippers to strip the end of that red wire. Now take your rocker switch and insert the red wire into one of the leads on the switch, it doesn't matter which one, and then twist to secure it into place. Be sure that no part of that wire is touching the other lead on the switch, otherwise it'll just bypass the switch and it'll stay on all the time. Now take your extra length of wire, strip one of the ends, and then insert that end into the other lead of the switch and twist to secure it into place. Again, be sure that no piece of that wire is crossing and touching the other one of the leads on the switch. Now take both the red and the black wire, thread them through the door on the fan tower, and then use the hole on the bottom to help you thread them all the way up through the fan tower until you see them coming out of the hole that you created for the DC motor. Be sure that you pull the wires as far out as you can without pulling too tightly so that you pull something off of your switch. Now take your DC motor. Be sure you've stripped the black wire and then insert that into one side on one of the leads of the DC motor and twist to secure it into place. Then be sure you've stripped the end of the red wire that's poking out and attach that to the other lead on the motor. Now don't attach these too securely yet because you may need to reverse them if your fan is spinning the wrong way. Now insert the motor into the tower so that the little bar is poking through the hole that you created. And then take your little plastic fan and attach it to that axle. Now take your 2 AA batteries and insert them into the battery pack. Now flip the switch to make sure all your connections are secure. Make sure your fan is blowing the right way. If it's not blowing the right way, then switch the leads on your motor. Once everything's working well, then you can pop your switch into its box and your fan is now complete. And if you want to be extra sure that those connections all stay joined, then use a soldering iron to solder them together.